Welcome to chapter 2.1 of the Exercise Leadership 2. And our reason it's 2.1 is this is a longer chapter and we break it down into two parts. So we'll go over the 2.1 and then we'll have the 2.2, right? So let me put this up to full screen and we'll go over it. Again, waiting on this janky computer to do its work. I hit my button. Hopefully you guys can see that I hit the buttons and it just, yeah, working off the old Macintosh 2 brown computer that has the floppy disk you play Oregon Trail, I think was one step above the computer that I have here. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I spend more time waiting on the little circle spinning than I actually do getting work done, which is not fun. All right, so chapter 2, principles of motivation and adherence. And I just hit the button to go to the next slide, and we are waiting, 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 waiting. All right, so we are going to talk about intrinsic, extrinsic motivation and self-efficacy, relationship between self-efficacy and motivation, list and implement strategies to maintain client motivation, and describe factors influencing exercise participation, adherence, personal attributes, environmental factors, and physical activity factors. Just to let you know, this chapter basically is a very, this is what I wrote my dissertation on for my PhD. So this is a chapter that I know, or this type of stuff is what I know very well. This chapter kind of touches briefly, it's like dipping your toes into the water, not quite getting all into it, but I think this stuff is very important nonetheless. So again, there's a lot of different theoretical constructs. And again, when we get into psychology, there's very little that we truly know as truth. And again, it's because the complexity of being a human in our minds, it's, yes, there are certain things that we know, okay, if you do this, it more than likely is going to trigger this, but it doesn't always. And so it's one of those sciences that is really a good mix of science and art, and always being able to be able to look at individuals as we're not always going to line up when it comes to the psychological parts of things, not as much, and again, even when you look at physiology and those things, there's a lot of times, well, that works for like 80% or 90%, but this, what about this? And so it really is, when we're looking at human sciences in general, they're sort of a mess. We know that somebody can't live without their heart beating. So, there's some of those things that will hold true, that you do have to breathe oxygen. Those things hold true. But some of the other things, you get down to trying to figure out how many calories each individual needs and doesn't need, and based on their training, based on what their bodies allow them to do and not do, and physical performance. And yeah, man, there's a lot of individuality goes into that. So just understand that when we go through this chapter, you may say, this doesn't sound like me. It might not. Okay. But again, when we look at these sciences, they're looking at what holds true for the majority. What do we know about the majority? And then take that and tailor it to yourself, or tailor it to your clients or your friends or whoever you're trying to help. Okay. So sources of motivation include: the individual must like a person, the individual much like a personality trait. Okay. I don't like how that's written. Basically, what I was saying is there are certain personality traits that each individual have. Sometimes we can break them down and we can try to group them, right? We can say, okay, this person's type A, this person's very laid back. I've heard that type B is not really a thing, but they're more type B. This person gets angry very easily. They're in this group. This person worries a lot. They're in this. Yeah, well, you have some folks that are laid back, but internally worry a lot, or they're internally angry. You have some folks that wear their personalities on their sleeves, so you think of them as more type A because when they worry, they let everybody know. When they're angry, they let everybody. So, you know, you can have all these mixes. You know, so there's, you know, when you get down to their individual, like within them, what motivates them? Well, yeah, it's different for each person. You know, I mean, some people are very, you know, all about their looks, right? So, you know, they have, you know, whether you want to say they have an Adonis complex or they're self-centered or whatever it is, yeah, you know, they worry a lot of the time of how do I look. Some people are worried about how they feel, you know, like you know, they're just, you know, I feel better when I look better, or I feel better when I'm exercising, I'm doing work, or I feel better when I'm relaxed. It's all about how they feel. You know, some people just want to be comfortable. Some people feel like if they're not comfortable, they're not doing anything. Man, the list goes on, right? You know, some people really worried about their health, some people aren't. Okay. Some people, encouragement. They need encouragement, guidance, and support. Others don't, right? You have some folks that they have to have somebody cheering them on, or you know, they see, look what I'm doing. You know, like that. You know, it's kind of like those kids are like, "Mom, Dad, look at me. Mom, Dad, look at me," and they're that way as adults. You have other folks that they just do things whether or not somebody's watching. You know, it's like, I'm going to do the right thing, or I'm going to do what's healthy for me. I'm going to do what I feel is important for me. And I don't care if anybody notices or doesn't. Right. And you got kind of in between. Some people need a little bit, some people need a lot of encouragement. And then things, ideas, and events. Well, that's really kind of a broad category, isn't it? And again, that's, you know, I get what they're doing when they're writing this. It's like, these are people. There's a lot of things that go into this. So things, right? Things and stuff. You know, I got things and stuff to do is what I tell people a lot of times, because I don't really want to get into what I'm doing sometimes, right? So intrinsic motivation. This is basically the motivation that we talk about that comes from within, right? So you're doing it for whatever, like pleasure, experience. Um, you know, it just like there's something inside of you that drives you to do it, right? You might be able to verbalize it, you might not. It may be a sense of duty, maybe a sense of shame, it may be, you know, like, I mean, it can be positive, negative, right? But there's something inside you that drives you to exercise, okay? And there's good things and there's bad things. And again, you got to understand that, because at some point, some of those things, like if you feel guilt or shame or whatever else, if you ever get over those things, well, your motivation exercise can go. And again, the exercise part is important and healthy and good for you. So it's good to have positive intrinsic motivation, or intrinsic motivation that we want to continue, right? So if you have some psychological issues that you end up getting solved at some point, we don't want that to be the end to your exercise, right? And so again, shifting it to things that are more positive and longer lasting, that come from within, would be something we'd want to do to help somebody along those lines. Extrinsic, um, is because benefit, other than for what's coming inside you. So again, you want other people to notice. Now again, you could argue that's intrinsic, extrinsic, because you feel good from the inside because somebody else says you look good, right? And so, you know, yeah, there's a mix. It's really hard to find things that are 100% extrinsic or 100% intrinsic. Usually it's like a sliding scale, right? Where it's 80% intrinsic, 20% extrinsic, or vice versa, or 30% extrinsic, 70% intrinsic. So a lot of times when we look at these things, we say they're black and white, but they aren't. It's a grayscale. And you know, you've got, you know, if you listed even a lot of the intrinsic, you know, you could have multiple intrinsic reasons why you exercise, and each intrinsic may have some extrinsic factors as well. So understand that. So again, when we try to say we want to move people, because that's always our goal, is moving from extrinsic to intrinsic. Really, it's not as much of like, okay, we're going to take away any extrinsic motivations, because now they have intrinsic. It's, we want them to just have a stronger sense from the inside of doing this and making it a habit, rather than somebody necessarily holding their hand or pushing them to do it, right? So you think of like an adult versus a child, right? So, children may not want to take a shower. They're like, I don't want to do it. I would rather play video games or go do this or go do that. Yeah, I don't want to waste time taking a shower, right? And so the parent has to extrinsically motivate them to take a shower because they don't want the stinky kid, right? Where eventually that kid starts to be like, I don't want to be a stinky kid. I want to shower, or I don't like to feel, something inside them makes them not want to feel dirty or smelly or whatever else, right? It shifts, right? And part of that is always that extrinsic motivation, like you think of like a teenage boy or girl that's interested in other teenage boys or girls. They don't want to smell in front of them. So there's a bit of extrinsic motivation that intrinsically motivates them, right? That's really what we're looking for with exercise. It's this shift where they're doing it on their own, but there's always going to be some extrinsic. So don't ever get the false sense that there's a stopping point of like, okay, I'm 1000% intrinsically motivated with no extrinsic. No, there's always that little bit of, like, do I look good? Or, am I strong? Am I performing well? There's always something to that extent, right? So just understand that. So again, just what I explained, there's a continuum, right? There's always going to be an amount of extrinsic. So you're never going to get 100% away from that. Okay. And again, I like what they wrote over here on the side, although the ACE platform in the way that they want to teach to personal train doesn't necessarily line up 100% with this. Neither does NASM. But in general, personal trainers must teach, not control. I 100% agree with that statement. At first there might be a bit more control, and sometimes, like, hey, you need to do these things. Or if you look at it from this way, you're working with kids, you're working, like sometimes you got to just tell them, because especially, like if you're a strength coach and you're working with athletes and I don't want to do that. Well, we're going to do that, right? And again, that doesn't mean that it's 100% control. Like, well, why am we going to do that? Because I said to do it. There's going to be some of that because you're the coach, and you have a certain amount of authority, and you may have to flex that authority. But at the same time, when a kid's like, Coach, why are we running? The whole "because I said so" is not, sometimes that may be appropriate with a certain kid. But in general, if the team's asking, Coach, why are we doing this? The answer should be, because it will help you improve in this, whatever that may be. You're going to be able to not tire so quickly during the game so that you can be competitive from quarter 1 to quarter 4, or the first half and the second half, whatever sport you're playing and how they divvy up time, from inning 1 to inning 9. Or this can make you stronger. You'll be more, you're going to be able to, do this better in your sport. You're going to be more explosive. You'll be able to do this better in your sport, right? And so there's always teachable moments, even when they're kind of in what, like I would say, the infant stages of being an athlete or being a client. And that can go for adults, right? Sometimes adults just need a little, like, kind of kick in the butt type of thing, and it depends on the person, right? And you got to figure out, how you deal with certain people, and certainly you're just going to be like, why are we doing this? Because I need to push you, and you need to just surrender sometimes. It's just good for you, right? But because I said so, and on top of it, this is what it's doing to help you out, right? So again, sometimes there's a little bit of that needed, but hopefully when you have good clients, no, you're going to coach, and coaching is teaching, right? And so you're going to teach and teach and teach, right? So self-efficacy really in anything is your belief that you're capable to successfully do something, right? So when we're talking about exercise, that's it, like, and again, it doesn't mean that like you've ever done it before. So like, say you've never run a marathon, but you believe that you have the capabilities to do it if you train for it, right? that's what it is. Like, I can do this, and there's certain things that, like, you're like, no, I cannot do, right? So if you're 5'2" and you're 85 years old and you have a 1-inch vertical, being able to dunk before you die on a 10-foot hoop is probably not something you'd have strong self-efficacy, nor would you probably get a whole lot of perceived autonomy support telling you, which that's basically somebody, like helping you build you up, like we are talking about, it's a part of extrinsic motivation, where they'd be like, yeah, we think you can do it, grandpa. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. You're probably not going to get your grandkids like, now you got this, grandpa, you just got to train for it, right? No, right? So there are certain things that you're not going to have self-efficacy because it's not within your realms. But a lot of things in physical activity we should have, and especially when it just comes to like, is it just all about the grind? If it's all about the grind, pretty much anybody can do it. As long as you don't have some major health issue, keeping you from doing something. If it's just like, I've never really been in good shape, I don't know that I can run a marathon. No, I believe everybody can. Anybody that doesn't have a major medical issue not to run one, I think they can. I honestly, physically, I think they can. It's up to them mentally whether or not they can, right? So, I mean, if you could jog a mile, you could jog a marathon. I honestly 100% believe in anybody that can jog a mile, can jog a marathon. It's just a matter of training and believing in yourself, and pushing yourself through those hard times to do it, right? It's your mentality that'll keep you from doing it at that point. Okay. Relationship between motivation and self-efficacy. So being aware of self-efficacy levels, personal trainers will be better able to consistently motivate their clients and help them create positive self-belief. And this, again, this is why personal trainers need to have good education, because by reading a textbook and taking an exam, you have not learned psychology, right? And having good psychology professors and taking some good psychology classes, taking some good exercise psych and sports psych is crucial, because a lot of times what you get when you have somebody that is not well-rounded in education, and this is what we see, right? So I'm going to pick on some different like educated folks that are in our field, right? We have nutritionists. I've seen nutritionists that have a mix between nutrition and psychology, and they're good at motivating folks to do nutrition. Now, if you get them in the physical fitness realm, it's a whole different thing. They know it's important, they just don't know what to teach anybody, right? Because they don't have a background in fitness. But again, a lot of times, what do most people come to see like a registered dietitian or nutritionist for? Weight loss, right? So they know a little bit about it. They know one half of it. They know, or not even one half. I'd say weight loss is definitely a three-headed monster. It's the science of nutrition, the science of exercise sciences, and then the psychology, right? If you're gonna, and again, psychology is kind of mixed into both of those. But yeah, if you're gonna really, like, look at it as a big three-headed monster. And so some nutritionists just get one head of that, or sometimes two, right? They usually don't get the fitness unless they take those as electives or minor in it or something like that. Vice versa, there are some fitness programs out there that have very little nutrition, very little psych, right? Now, again, I've yet to see a exercise science program that is devout of the other two. But again, a good, well-rounded program, you're going to get enough nutrition to not just be dangerous, and you should get enough exercise psych to not be dangerous. But there's good and there's good and bad programs. The problem is we have too many folks that practice in our field that have zero education in all three, and they're out there telling people what to do. And it really is, and it's one of those things that, I'm going to be honest with you. I went through sports psych and exercise, like exercise psych, and I understood some of it. And again, I understood it theoretically. Right? I took classes, got a good theory on it, but we never really practiced it. And again, that's partially my fault for not taking some excess psych courses that I should have taken. Again, I didn't know at the time that that would have been so important, but by the time I went through my doctorate, I had a lot of psychology in my doctorate, really opened my eyes up. And then my experience too was I came from a coaching background. So you think, okay, well, what's bad about that? Well, I coached elite athletes. I coached college level athletes. I coached professional level athletes. I did not coach even youth. That's, like I had one internship at a high school, and even at high school, you say jump, they say how high. You say run, they say no. You say, okay, go sit the bench. Okay, coach, I'll go run. Right? It's not about motivation. you know Now again, I was always cheering them on as they were doing things, but it wasn't about like really getting them to build a lifetime of fitness. Right? My thing was, I want to see you by the time your sport comes around. I want you at the top of your game, and I don't care if you like it or not. You're going to do what I tell you to do. So when I first got into personal training, it was a little ugly, to say the least, right? Because this stuff was beyond me. And the other thing is you got to take my personal experience. Um, Man, I've been an athlete as long as I can remember. I've never been gifted athletically, so if I wanted to play, I had to work my butt off, and it was just always that way. So if I want to be on the team, or if I want starting time or any of that stuff, I had to work hard. So motivation was never an issue necessarily for me. And so when I'm working with, I remember distinctly one of the first weight loss clients I had. She was in her 30s. She was overweight, hadn't worked out since she was like in high school or something. And back then she's like, I didn't really like formally work out. I was just like in things, like I can't remember what she was in, like, some sports or whatever, and just having to take P and all that. And so, my thing was, okay, well, you don't want to be fat. I mean, this is just in my head, and it's probably even maybe how I said it at the time, this long, many years ago, and so, okay, well, you don't want to be fat anymore, right? Yeah, right. Okay. Well, you need to work hard. Okay, we're going to do these things. Well, I don't want to do those things. Well, do you not want to do those things, or you not want to be fat, because you go, here's your choice. And my whole thing was, like, if you're going to work, you're going to work. I just, sports mentality, right? I mean, if you're going to do it, let's give 100%. You know, did not really think about, not everybody has that type of mentality, and some people you got to ease them into things, right? And so, with that said, you know, it's hold on one sec. Sorry about that. That was a call I had to answer. So, anyways, yeah. So these are again going through psych, and realizing that people don't always have the same amount of motivation or self-discipline. Um, Understanding how to motivate people, how to move them into having self-efficacy that they also believe. And again, past experience really plays into self-efficacy. If you've constantly failed at weight loss, your self-efficacy when it comes to weight loss, or when it comes to fitness, and adhering to all that, diminishes every time you fail, right? And so when you've had people that have done yo-yo diets, you've had people that have tried different fitness fads, you've had people, it's a mess, right? And so you've got to understand that when people are coming in, their past behaviors, in their past bad experiences with terrible trainers or gyms or whatever else, it all diminishes the self-efficacy, that, a positive self-efficacy, that they should be able to accomplish that. Okay. um, so be aware of that. Okay. And waiting on the slide. Come on. Okay. So be aware of self-efficacy levels. Again, where's somebody at? Are they, and really it's like, do you feel like they're more in a positive self-efficacy? Like they believe they could do it? Like they're like, hey, I'm not doing it now, but I know I can. Or I'm not doing it now. I'm not sure if I can, or I'm not doing it now. I don't think I can. I mean, really, again, you can have them take, you can have them take questionnaires to really like get it a little bit more dialed in. But really, that's kind of the different areas that you're looking at. Like I'm not, I mean, because again, when somebody's coming to you, and they're trying to make a change, right? So this is not somebody that's fit and they're just coming for more, like exercise theory or just like to learn more and all that. So we've got somebody that's not doing what they should be doing, so to speak. They're going to fall into one of those three categories. Like I'm not doing it, but I really think I can. If I put the effort, I really think I can, right? So they haven't had a whole lot of bad experiences. They're just not doing it. I'm not doing it and I'm not sure, right? Maybe they've seen some weight loss, but then it comes back, and then they've seen some weight loss, and then it comes back. And then you got some other folks that like, they honestly just, they're like, somebody told me to come to you. I don't think you can help me. I think there's something wrong with my body. I don't lose weight. Right. Like I can eat nothing and still gain weight. They just got this, like the whatever they've done, it's been, like just destroyed them psychologically. Okay. Um, so again, how do we know that? Well, we got to communicate, and you got to be aware to understand their thought patterns, right? So one of the problems that we have, and especially a lot of trainers have, is they think they have the answers and they're just waiting for somebody to say something. It's like a used car salesman, right? Salesmen, you can read all these sales books, and it's like, okay, we're just waiting for these keywords. If they say these keywords, you got them, right? As soon as they say this, you jump in and say, whoa, we can do this, and now you're going to buy my car, right? You're not salespeople. And as much as people tell you as a personal trainer, you got to be a good salesman, uh, I'd tell all those people, shut up, right? This isn't about sales. If you're a good trainer, that sells itself. That's all you need to know. If you know what you're doing and you're good at your job, you sell yourself. Okay. And if you are helping your clients and you're amazing, they sell you, right? You don't have to use car sales somebody into buying personal training from you. And if you have to do that, get out of the industry. We don't need you. You're screwing it up for everybody else. Okay. So you need to be in touch with their thought patterns of your clients. And so how do you do that? Listen. And again, the more people that you work with, you'll start to pick up, yeah, there's certain patterns, there's certain things that, there's certain ways that people talk about themselves and to themselves. And I mean, there, you can take a lot of psych and a lot of psych theory, and you can sit in a lot of seminars and all that, but experience is always going to help. I just, I don't know what to tell people sometimes. It's like, yeah, I can teach and teach and teach you, but until you get out there and you just deal with some of it, it's, yeah, the more, and again, the more education you get, great, but part of it's just the experience, right? And sitting in and experiencing that. Creating short-term success. Now, again, that doesn't mean that we don't have the long-term goals in mind, but the thing is people like to see the steps they're taking, right? So if, like you see a mountain and you're looking at the top of it and your goal is to climb it, but we've got you walking around the mountain and not necessarily going up towards the top. And so you never see the top getting any closer, or you don't see, like, some of the, say there's little landmarks along the way, you see some flags. It's like, okay, once you get to that flag, you're a quarter of the way up, or so on and so forth. So you've got somebody that's got you circling around the bottom of the mountain and you're doing work and doing things, but you never get any closer to even the first flag, let alone the second, third, fourth, fifth, or whatever to get to the top of the mountain. You're going to start having some doubts, right? And so again, short-term success kind of squelches some of those doubts, right? And the short-term success doesn't mean, okay, if your goal is weight loss, necessarily that you're really seeing the weight loss right away. It could be that you can only lift 5 pounds when you first started. We're a week in now and you're lifting 15 pounds doing the same lift. That's movement in the right direction. You don't feel near as tired as you did the first day. You know, you come in a week later or 2 weeks later and you're like, I'm feeling better doing this. I can do this. The first day I thought I was going to die. Today I don't feel like. There's a lot of things that can be positive that aren't necessarily directed right at the exact thing that they came in for, right? Now, if they see some weight loss, of course, that's great. If they see, you know, they feel like their clothes are fitting better, that's great. They start to look at themselves in the mirror and like, I look better. Those things are all great, but anything moving in the right direction is good, right? And so short-term success, and by all means, this is why it's always important. As a trainer, it's good to kind of record everything they're doing from day one, because some people will see all those things sort of happen. Some people might see like one thing happen a little bit, then something else. And so if you have things that are recording, you know, as you're going, you know, like, okay, you know, whether it's how much they could lift on certain lifts, how many reps they could do, so on and so forth, if that's all recorded each time they do something, you can show them their success, right? Um, Again, be aware of how much feedback a client needs and provide that, right? So everybody's different. And this is what's hard, again, because you know what you need. You got to figure out what somebody else needs. You know, I get in trouble with this a lot with my wife. I don't need a lot of like attaboys. I don't need to talk things out. I is not that way. She does. And so I know my needs, but sometimes I'm not always aware of what she needs. And I skip over certain things because I'm like, I don't need that. Your clients, you know, other people are different. You have to make sure you don't skip over those things with them, right? Help clients reevaluate appraisals of their physiological states to create more positive interpretations, right? So again, somebody's working out. So at first they just wanted to lose weight, but they start noticing weight's going up, but they look better. And they're like, well, how come I look better? Weight's going up. Hey, you're putting on muscle. You know, you're putting on muscle at a higher rate than what your body fat's losing at. You know, you're also drinking more water, so your body's staying more hydrated, but you're carrying more of that water, which is weight. You know, but it's not bad weight. It's just, you know, you're wanting to lose fat, right? Yeah. I know you're looking at it as a number on the scale, but that's not what it is. I mean, you know, so yeah, over time you're probably going to lose some because we've got a lot of excess of that, and you may not, you know, it's probably not going to be that you're going to replace pound for pound muscle and fat. So, you know, so you will see that at some point, but there's going to be times of more, you know, like where the muscle growth is happening. You might not see the changes happening on the scale. So again, it's good to measure body fat percentage. It's good to measure their muscle strength, maybe even like you know, or like growth measurement. So arms and legs are getting bigger, but their midsection is getting smaller. You know, things that, you know, show them progress is being made, maybe just not in the way that they were thinking of measuring it. Okay. Teach clients appropriately identify muscle fatigue, soreness, tiredness. I, you know, again, they didn't really kind of say the other part, but you know the difference between coach it hurts and coach I might be injured, right? So you know you know, athletes, you know, there's that was that question, you know, you hurt, you injured, right? Hurt is like, man, I got dinged, I'm sore. It's not something that's going to keep me out. Maybe, you know, maybe a little ice after practice or after the game, or maybe I just need to wrap something a little bit. It's not like a big injury or something. And then there's like injured. If I continue to do something, it could become worse, you know, or it could become something where I got to sit out for a while, right? Same thought process. You know, they need to know of what pains are okay, what pains are not okay, and learn. Again, it's not 100% like all or nothing thing. These are not athletes, but when to push a little bit through the fatigue, push a little bit through the soreness, push a little bit through the tiredness, in a manner that they feel comfortable doing. Because again, they need to be uncomfortable, but they need to be comfortable at being uncomfortable. I know that's a weird thing to say, but yes. So you got to be comfortably uncomfortable with what you're doing, right? And like I said, that's going to depend on the client. You know, somebody that's got like a military background or somebody that's got a sports background, their comfortability of being very uncomfortable is different than somebody that doesn't have that background, that's really never been pushed physically. Their comfortability at being uncomfortable is a lot less. Okay. And just understand that. Most new clients will start programs with very low self-efficacy. You know, again, like I said, they've tried and failed in the past a lot of times. So how are you going to deal with that? And again, there's not a right way to do it. There's not, if there was a cookie cutter approach, you know, we'd put that in here. I know this, again, if you guys read through the chapter a little bit more, there's some things in there that you're going to feel like, well, they're kind of telling me, no, understand everybody's different, and you got to listen to each person of who they are, what they've been through, where they're at now, where they're wanting to go, and you listen before you speak. How do assessments make you feel? That's the other thing too. You know, a lot of people are big on assessing, and I even tell you guys like, okay, it's good to have all these numbers, but man, some people don't feel comfortable knowing their exact body fat percentage. Some people don't feel comfortable getting into a bathing suit and getting in a bod pod. Some people don't feel comfortable lifting up their shirt to let you pinch their fat. And that's okay. And again, you know, sometimes it's good to push them a little bit and be like, you know, if we can get these numbers, you know, it'll pass. And some folks, you need to read the room and be like, we don't need to do that, right? Or, you know, or we don't need to do that now, you know. And again, maybe once their body's changed a lot, they're like, man, I wish I would have done that. But at the time, it may have been something that would have pushed them over the edge, and they would have never come back, and they'd never achieve goals. So read the room. Like I said, everybody's different. You know, sometimes being timed, because some people are super competitive and they've had bad experiences being an athlete, or they're trying to get away from that. So sometimes like doing like 1 rep maxes or timing their runs or things like that give them a lot of anxiety. Don't do it. Okay. You can just be like, all right, go run a mile. We're not even gonna look at the time. I just want you to do 8 laps or whatever it is on the track, you know, depending on the size of the track, or 4 laps if it's a, you know, like a standard high school track or something like that. They go run the mile, and you're just gonna, I just want to see you run, right? And later you're gonna be like, all right, today's workout, you know, part of it, you're gonna run a mile. So they go run it, and you notice they're faster, right? And you're like, you did that faster. You know, you don't know how much faster. You didn't, you know, like you didn't time it because you're worried about their anxiety, but you know that they improved. They know that they improved. You know, they'll be like, do you feel like you're moving fast? Yeah, I feel like I'm doing good. All right, cool. Right. You know, like you look much faster, you look better, you're doing it better. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. You know, stay away from things that cause them some stress and anxiety if you can, right? That may be negative in helping them move forward. Okay. Like I said, there's not a game, you know, there's not a perfect game plan on this. Okay. So again, what strategies can you take to make each new client leave the first session feeling good, looking forward to being part of the program? I'm going to tell you one thing. Listen more than you speak. And when you speak, whatever you're saying needs to be completely 100% applicable to what they said. Okay. So you give them positive affirmation based on what they said. Don't just give them positive affirmation for giving it to them, and don't just give them a plan for the sake of giving them a plan. They need to 100% feel being heard. 100% squat. You need to squash any false directives that they have, or any false dichotomies, or any, you know, like, you know, like any false beliefs before they leave, and make them feel 100% like, no, they can do it. They've just been guided poorly in the past, and they're going to get a whole new direction moving forward, right? There you have it. Okay. Maintaining client motivation. So the thing is there's some days they're just not going to want to, and it's real easy to get into lazy habits, right? I'm sure some of you have dealt with that over coronavirus, or you've seen that with some folks, you know, over coronavirus time, being in lockdown, that Like they're just like, well, I can't go to the gym, so I'm not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden the gyms open up and you're like, all right, let's go back. And they're like, meh, right? It's easy. Okay. And especially for people that have been sedentary for a long, long time. I mean, I've seen that with some folks that haven't been sedentary in a long, long time, and they're just kind of in this like, meh. So what do you think for somebody that's been inactive, right? It's real easy to get back into that. Again, social support. The more social support somebody has, that's always good. Again, it's a weird thing because, like you think, okay, the more cheerleaders they have, the better off. But sometimes that can be an overwhelming pressure for people too, because now they feel like they have to perform. And it can really swing to one end where they go overboard. And of course, during the time they're going overboard, you're feeling like a genius because they're like, man, they went from working out once a week to 3 times a week, then 7 days a week, then twice a day, 7 days. And like, there's a point where it's like, it almost like, like you got to look at it and be like, they seem a bit obsessive, and they might be. And part of it is like every time they get this positive affirmation from other people, they feel a pressure to continue. And sometimes they go too much till they break. How is it that you monitor that? Is hard because one of the things is you're so happy that they're like you just feel like, man, they're hooked, like freaking, I gave them like a taste of the good drugs of exercise and now they're hooked, right? Yeah. And sometimes they crash, and it's hard sometimes to figure out where that line is, because again, for every person that line's different. Okay. So again, you want to get people involved. But again, it's, and I don't know what to tell you about this particular slide. Yes, the more people involved in helping move them forward and being positive motivations for them and so on and so forth is great. But depending on your client, maybe hearing some verbal cues of like they feel pressure from other people and stuff like that, you really pay attention to that. I mean, that's all I can tell you. And they may not verbalize it. You may look back sometime. That's one of those 2020 things. A lot of times, like before somebody crashes, you'll look back and be like, that's when it hit. You didn't see it at the time because it just seemed like good positive behavior, right? It's hard. Assertiveness is defined as honest, straightforward expression of one's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. There's a way to deliver that. So there's a way of being not too assertive and being assertive. Okay, so again, you've got to be honest with people, right? You've got to be honest. You've got to tell them like what you know, what you think, and all that. But you got to tell them in a way that it doesn't like break them, right? And again, assertiveness is going to depend on each client. Like how assertive can you be with each client, right? Self-regulation. Personal trainers should strive to teach their clients to become effective self-regulators of their own behavior, schedules, times, and priorities. I 100% agree with that. Eventually, they need to be adults, right? You got to look at this. Every client that comes in to use like a infant or toddler or whatever it is, by the time they leave, they need to be fully functioning adults. And again, they need to leave, right? We don't want no 30-year-old kid that's living in your basement type clients, right? And if you have that, you failed. If you do that as a parent, you failed. By the time an adult's an adult, they need to be an adult and do adult things. And it's the same thing. You need to raise adults in clients, right? Take them in as children and raise them to be adults that can fully take care of themselves, and they understand how to take care of themselves. They understand what they're doing and how it works in their body to take care of themselves. That's the goal, right? Raise an adult. High risk situations. Again, when they're talking about high risk, they're talking about high risk of relapse, right? No, we're not talking about like somebody may have a heart attack tomorrow, but what we're talking about is high risk to relapse back into being sedentary and not doing things, right? So we're talking about motivation. So again, you have some folks that are always like, when they first start, they're like one way, they're just 1 foot in, not even 1 foot in, they're like 3 toes in. a complete foot out and a couple toes ain't even touching the ground. Like they're just ready, always ready to quit. Okay. And so when you notice that, you notice that you're going to have to be different with them. Is somebody that's like, nah, I really want this. Right. And so identify that, and you may, identify what you've got to do to keep moving them closer to getting both feet in the pool and eventually getting into the shallow end. And then hopefully we get them to the deep end and they're swimming, right? Again, I'm not getting into depth on this stuff, and it's not like I'm being lazy or I just don't want to, but I'm gonna be honest with you, every person you deal with is different. The only way to really show you that is if we, I would love, like, if I had clients and I could bring them in and you guys, I'd be like, all right, you guys sit in the corner and watch, or if we had like one of those interrogation rooms, like you see, like on like police and FBI shows and stuff. It's like, all right, you guys go sit behind the glass and watch, right? And again, it's not like every time I have a different client in, it'd be like a perfect situation. I'm like, do you guys get that? Yeah, that's how it's done, right? No, it's not gonna be like, here, I'll be like, do you see those mistakes? Yeah, don't do that. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, that was good. I mean, this is human interaction. There's good and bad that happens every single time. So again, I don't like strategies. I hate that they put it that way, because it's like, what gimmicks, what strategies? Now, your strategy is to be open to everybody that comes in. Your strategy is to let them speak their truth. Then your strategy would be to not promise things you can't deliver, but tell them, these are fitness truths. These are biological truths. These are the thing is everybody can be healthy. The thing is everybody can lose weight. The thing is we've got to figure out the path that you will take to get there. And sometimes we're going to get off the path, and sometimes, and again, we may not even know the path. It's one of those, like, like you watch one of those, like a karate movie where it's like, what's my path, sensei? The path will reveal itself. And they're like, what are you talking about? Right? It really is. I mean, you're going to start moving them forward. And sometimes it's one of those things, like, any of you that have ever been like out exploring in the woods and you ever get off a path, or you think, I think I'm going to go off the path and I'm going to hit the path somewhere else, or I'm going to hit another path because, like, you see something, man, sometimes you're going through areas and you're like, man, you're deep in the brush and you're like, man, I'm going in the right direction. I just got to hit the trail some point, and you just got to wait and wait, because where you thought it wasn't quite there. Right. And again, this is from experience growing up in the mountains, or like when I've tracked animals, like when I've been hunting and things like that, you get off the path and you go track and you're, eventually you're like, okay, I know this thing winds around because I've read the maps, whatever else, however, it's there. Right. And sometimes you're in that same boat, right? The path will come, and you got to help them to understand that, yes, the path will come. Right now we're off, we're going in the right direction. We just haven't quite identified your path yet. Okay. But, and again, that's why it's important to have ways to show them, like, you're moving forward, you're hitting goals. They may not be the exact goals, but they align with the goals you want. And eventually, yes, the path will present itself. Okay. It's not always perfect. Sometimes the path is right there. You're at the trailhead. You can see the path and you stay on the path. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're on and off. Sometimes it's like, okay, there is a path we got to get to. We got to wait till we can find it, but we know the right direction to go. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you all with that. It's just, that's how it is. So things that will influence your exercise participation. Personal attributes, environmental factors, and physical activity factors, right? So again, what does that mean? A whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of everything, all in one. Right? Everybody's got different personal attributes. Everybody's been through different environmental things, and everybody's got different physical activity factors, things they like and dislike, different positive and negative, interactions that they've had in their past. And again, personal attributes, certain things that motivate you, certain things that don't, and everybody's completely different. It's a mess, right? Demographic variabilities, where do you live, what's available, what do people in your community do, don't do, what's popular, not popular, um, you know, what's available, not available, all of that, right? Health status, are you relatively healthy and just trying to avoid getting unhealthy, or have you gotten really unhealthy and now you've got a long way back, and everything in between? What's your history? You play video games and watch movies your whole life, or did you used to be active and got out of it, right? Psychological traits. Do you give up easily? Do you have to have someone hold your hand, or somebody slaps you in the face, you're going to slap them back, right? Or somebody tells you can't do it, you're like, screw you, watch this. Or somebody goes, you can't do it, you sit and cry about it. Again, I'm not picking, what I'm saying is different people are different. And there's a mix of all that, right? I'm one of those folks that you tell me I can't do something, it makes me mad enough, I'm going to be like, I'll show you. It's funny, when I went to my doctoral program, the first week I was there, my program director picked that up. I'm going to throw his name out there, not in a bad sense, because it was one of those things. At the time, he made me mad. His name is Troy Adams. All right. So Troy, if you ever listen to this, I just threw your name out there, Dr. Troy Adams. Somehow this guy, in the first week of knowing me, or the first week that I had on ground classes, I did a hybrid doctoral program. So first week he met me, he realized if he told me I couldn't do something and basically told me I had no hope, it would make me mad enough to do it. And again, I don't know that if he went a different route, like if he would have told me I could do it, it's not like it would have been like, oh, he lifted me up and then I would have failed. I don't think I have that personality either, but he just knew that there was something about me. Like, if you push me, I'm going to push back harder. Right. And he knew there was something strong, and just from the few interactions we had, and he did that. And I would remember being mad because it was one of those things, he tricked me because I didn't pick it up at the time. I just thought, this guy's a jerk. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. Fine, I'm going to show this idiot and I'm going to graduate, which I did. And I realized, and it was one of those things, like there's a point at which I kind of knew, because like I would get these like attaboys from him a little bit. And I'm like, I think he might have done that up. It was like, more psychology classes I took in my doctoral program, I'm like, I know he did that. And then he finally, towards the end of my program, he's like, remember that first week? I'm like, yep. Remember what I said to you? Yep. He's like, how did that motivate you? I'm like, it made me really mad. It made me know at that point, there's no way I was going to let you be right. And he goes, yep. Right. Just a different psychological trait. He knew it. Right. And again, like I said, that's not the only route that would have helped me be successful. If he would have been like, look, I know, like you're working full time, this is, not an ideal time for you to be doing this, all these things, but I honestly really believe you can do this. I probably saying that I still would have graduated, but he saw, what he saw first in me was the fact that I like to fight and that I don't like to be told no. So he played on it. Right. Right or wrong, good or bad, he played on it and it worked, and that's the thing with different people, doesn't mean that there's always one path, and sometimes if you start to see you're losing them on it, and maybe he would have done that at some point, and maybe he still kind of did, I don't know, because I started to feel some more positive things from him throughout the years that I was in my doctoral program. You can start using different motivational factors, like you can use one for a little bit and then switch, right? Okay, so just understand that, and again, I give you guys kind of a personal experience being on the other end of that, right? So some environmental factors: access to facilities, time, social support. Again, this is why it's so important. Use a personal trainer. Don't let where you work be the biggest barrier to them working with you and getting fit. So if you work at a gym, doesn't mean you always have to meet them at the gym, right? Again, especially if they're getting paid through the gym, your gym shouldn't really care if you're working on their equipment or not. If you've got to go meet them at a soccer field to go do some stuff, go meet them at a soccer field. So if they don't have access or they don't have time or whatever it is, and you've got to go like, hey, there's a soccer field right by your work, just take your clothes with you. I'll meet you over there on these days, right? Do it. Okay. I mean, if it's feasible for both of you, I get if you're like, look, it's a really hard drive for me to get over there. I won't get back to my clients. If it's, again, if you're committed to this person and you've got the time to help them to do it that way. Right. And then again, like social support, um, you as a social supporter, other folks of their social support is important, right? And so the more social support they have, those days where they don't feel like doing things, if you've ever had a good workout buddy, they're the ones that are like, you're like, man, let's skip the gym today, and they're like, that sounds good, but no, we're going, right? They make you go, I mean, it's good to have that, right? And again, you as a trainer are going to be part of that for them. Physical activity factors, intensity versus injury, right? The goal is nobody should ever get injured on your watch, so always take that in consideration. But you always want to push them as far, again, not as far as they're willing to go, in the sense, because their will, a lot, like there's what they're willing to put up with, and there's what they think they're willing to put up with, and there's that, like, getting them past that comfort zone and again, you got to get them past that, right? So there's not that, like, you don't want to cave, like I told you, this is a really weird balance. You don't want to push them so hard that they burn out or they get injured. You don't want to be so easy on them that they never are uncomfortable and they never see any growth, right? There's that, like a good teacher pushes them just the right amount where they're comfortably uncomfortable, right? That's that whole weird thing I told you. There's no way to measure comfortably uncomfortable, okay? So, you got to use what you got to use your education, your experiences, your past clients, and all those things to figure out, how do I get somebody to start a program, adhere to the program, be successful in it. um, you know uh, People that enjoy what they're doing are more likely to continue doing it. So try to figure out things, and again, it doesn't mean that necessarily that the entire workout's always enjoyable or anything like that, but yeah, there's things that they enjoy, like, so for me, I don't enjoy running, but I do enjoy the benefits of running, so I run, right? It's weird, I enjoy that. I don't like to run. I'm going to go run here in a little bit. I'm going to go for a 5-mile run, and I'm going to hate every single second of the run itself, but I enjoy the fact that I can run, that my body will do that I feel better afterwards. Yeah, I enjoy that. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Now, if you can get them to enjoy the process and enjoy the benefits, that's even better. So yeah, if there's something, they're like, I love to ride bikes and I got time to ride bikes and I'll go ride and I'll ride hard, and great, right? When they believe that they can effectively engage in exercise behavior, they do so with a positive attitude, more effort, and yeah, you're going to see more out of them, right? And there's a lot of different strategies. And like I said, and it's not strategies, it's really, you've got to figure out what works for them, right? There's a John strategy or a Robert strategy or a Sarah strategy or a Linda strategy or a whatever it is, right? There's a strategy for each person. And again, it's going to change and grow as they change and grow, okay? And that's it. Again, great part of a chapter. I look forward to us actually engaging this in person in class. So you guys have any questions, please let me know. Again, I like that you guys do these before we actually do the in-person ones. But yeah, I'm trying to get this to stop. There we go. And